Next from Springfield, we sit down for a one-on-one interview with State Treasurer Mike Frerichs and discuss how the state budget impasse is affecting his office's ability to make investments on the state's behalf, as well as the upcoming auction on unclaimed property at the state fair, and his calls for the governor to sign the Unclaimed Policy Bill, which would regulate the methods life insurance companies use to make payments to beneficiaries. This runs about 20 minutes.
State Treasurer Mike Frerichs, thanks for joining us again on the Illinois Channel.
Terry, glad to be back with you.
Everyone knows who's followed state government that we had a year-long budget impasse. We still don't really have a full-year budget. We have a 6-month funding bill for most state departments. You just put out, as we sit here, a press release noting that in the second quarter the state lost, again, millions of dollars in interest.
We lost out on missed opportunities. The Treasurer's Office has never lost any money, but if we had a functioning government and had a full year budget and we could make different, longer investment decisions, we think we would have brought in an additional $7 million in investments. Over the course of the year, about $31 million.
And when you are investing, first of all, just so people know, the state treasurer handles the money that's sitting in the checking account. You invest it in different financial instruments. The longer you can make a commitment, the more interest you earn. So if you have to go into really short, like 24-hour financial instruments, you get paid less interest, and that's, I guess, the nub of the problem?
Yeah, you should come work in the Treasurer's Office. You explained it very well. Everyone knows that if you have extra money and you put it in a simple savings account, you will earn less money in interest than you would if you were to put it in a CD for a longer period of time. If you can commit to a lengthier investment, you'll get a higher interest rate and you'll make more money. It's the same thing here. We don't know, we can't plan because it's uncertainty, to put our investments in longer term assets. That means we bring in less money. We still make money for the state.
Right,
But
we're missing
out on opportunities to make more.
Right, so we should have made approximately, if we had had a budget and if your office could have made those longer term commitments to keep money in some instrument for 6 months or whatever, instead of a 24-hour instrument, you would have earned more interest for the people on the money that the state has sitting in their accounts.
Yeah, and specifically I want to point out in those accounts, a lot of people get confused because they say, well, we heard the General Revenue Fund was broke. That's just one of about 700 different accounts, funds that we oversee investments on. And most all of them have healthy fund balances. We invest about $12 billion on behalf of the state. And so just a small difference in terms of interest rate, a small improvement will generate a lot of money for the state.
You're right. In fact, we should remind people they probably hear the state budget is about $36 or $36 billion, I should say, or so. It's really combined about in the neighborhood of $60 billion because we have these, like the Highway Fund and any number of other funds like the LIHEAP Fund where money is collected and it goes into those funds. And that's what, so you're talking about that you can invest.
Yeah, so money comes in, it builds up before we can spend it. One of those funds is the Open Space Land Acquisition Fund. And you don't buy land a square foot at a time. You have to accumulate several $million before you go out and actually purchase land. And so our job is to manage and invest that money until it's needed for sale.
Now that we have the 6-month funding bill, at least the state's going to continue to operate through the end of this year. Does that give you any breathing room to make any longer term decisions, or without a budget are you still having to put the money in short-term instruments?
It gives us some breathing room. We're changing our investment approach because of this, but we're not back to where we should have been over a year ago. This is an improvement over going a year without a budget, but it's not where we should be. One, it's only 6 months, it's not a full year. And two, this budget is still dramatically out of balance. I heard the governor talk repeatedly about how he needs to have a balanced budget, he's going to veto unbalanced budgets. The budget he signed, independent experts have said, is about $8 billion out of budget. This is not fiscally conservative. This is not the way to run a state.
Would you have advised that he veto that bill?
No, I would have advised putting aside non-budgetary issues. What we found is time and time again, when they just focused on budget issues, the governor and the General Assembly, they reached consensus. It's when other non-budgetary issues were brought into the fold that they found gridlock. And so I would suggest that yes, there's some other things out there that he believes would improve our state. But the lack of a budget is frequently cited by rating agencies as a reason for our credit downgrades. And not only does it hurt our ability to bring in more money, this impasse, it also makes it more expensive for the state to borrow money. When the governor has gone out twice this year to issue debt, we pay more. That's taking money out of the pockets of Illinois taxpayers. And that is directly a result of not being able to sit down and to work out a balanced year-long budget.
Right now, approximately, I mean, we're on the general revenue funds. There's always some money in the bank, but typically how much money is sitting there passing through from one week to the next?
Well, money is always coming in. As people said to me frequently, they said, well, you work for the state, we have no money. And I said, no, we still have money. You still pay taxes. But we didn't have a spending plan in place. Now, thanks to court orders, and the governor signing an education bill last year, money has still been going out. The money comes in, and we invest, in some cases, as long as 5 years, in many cases, as short as overnight, trying to get fractions of percentage interest to bring in more money to the state.
And typically, is this, do you have like, what, 5 billion, 2 billion, or how much
So
money?
all of our combined funds, we invest this together, is about $12 billion. Okay. Depending on the time of year, we collect taxes in larger amounts at certain times of year, and certain payments go out other times of year, so it will fluctuate a little bit, but on average, that's about what we manage.
When the governor is talking, as you just alluded to, he was saying, you know, the way to really get more revenue to come in, and he's talked about being open to some more taxes. But the big money would be growing the economy again so that we're expanding faster. Do you ever touch base with either the governor or Comptroller Munger, or any, do you, as a treasurer, get to have any kind of a voice, or you ask for your voice and saying, hey, what would you think, or ideas you have to help expand the Illinois economy?
We put out our ideas, we talk to the media, we send letters. The governor has not requested my advice. The Comptroller and I work fairly closely together. Our offices have to. But my advice is, if you want to grow the economy, it's good to have people with jobs. And what we found is this budget impasse has created uncertainty. Companies have not been willing to grow or relocate here. And lots of employers, not-for-profits, have been laying people off over this last year. We've lost thousands of jobs because of this uncertainty, and because, quite frankly, we're not paying our bills. You can't expect people to continue to provide services and make payroll if the state is going to welch on their promises.
Let's move on just to some other topics. Right now, as we tape this, the State Fair will be coming up in about a week. I understand you're going to have, and again, one of the duties is a little background. Your office will take possession of unclaimed property, and sometimes someone dies and there's a bank vault or
a safe deposit
box is the term I was looking for, where things are found in it and maybe no one ever claimed it, and so your office will auction off. And so tell us a little bit about this. I think you're going to be doing something a little different here at the State Fair, aren't you, relative to the unclaimed properties auction? It'll
be a little different, but this is not the first time it's been done. Judy Bartopinka, when she was treasurer, had these annual auctions at the State Fair, live auctions. They generated a lot of interest. People were excited to come to them. And we had people ask me when I came in, why don't we do that anymore? So we're going to try this again. Judy Bartopinka loved the Illinois State Fair. She had a great time there. We want other people to experience this fair, and we want people to have the excitement of a live auction. So we'll be doing that on August the 20th. This will be a live auction. If someone can't make it to Springfield, they can make arrangements to have someone bidding on their behalf. Okay. If they're uncertain what items will be on the auction, we've had a couple of different viewing opportunities, both in Springfield and in Chicago. And they can go to illinoistreasurer.gov and check out our resource center, and they can do an online review of things they might want to bid on.
How long would that auction last approximately, do you know?
Oh, that auction will be on August the 20th. It'll be at the Illinois State Fairgrounds at the Ethnic Village tent.
I mean, is that an hour-long auction? Will it be all day as you bring out different lots? Or
it will take a little while, but it depends what kind of interest we have, how many people show up, and how fierce the bidding is. There will be many lots out there, there'll be many opportunities. for people if they're interested in coin collecting or in bills, in sports memorabilia, in concert tickets. There are a lot of interesting different items that someone out there valued enough to put in a safety deposit box. Unfortunately, these people probably passed away and didn't tell someone about it. So since their heirs weren't able to claim it, after several years was turned over to us. We've been trying to locate the rightful owner for the last 5 years. So 10 years total, we've not been able to find the rightful owners. We run out of room in our vault. And so we auction this off, but we don't keep the money of the state. We are the fiduciaries, we're responsible for overseeing it, but if they or their descendants come to us tomorrow, next year, or 10 years from now, we will pay them the value that the item sold for.
And actually that was going to be what happens with that money. So do you just note that we've raised from the auctions cumulatively X number of dollars, and you kind of just keep that aside in an account in case you ever have to pay the value to people?
Yeah, we keep track of how much the item sold for. So in one case, there was someone who really valued the Air Jordans. We found a pair of size 12 Air Jordans. We've held on to them for a while. Our vault is only so big, we can only hold so many things in there, so we are auctioning that off. But if that owner or their descendants or heirs comes to us 10 years from now, we will have a record of how much those sneakers sold for, and we will give them that full amount. We don't charge anything. If anyone gets a letter from a company saying that they will help recover property that belongs to them for a fee or a percentage, it's a scam. We don't charge anyone to do this. This is my job, to get unclaimed property back into the rightful hands of their owners.
Let's look, by the way, does someone have to, they can just show up if they're at the fair, I guess, and just start, you don't really have to register beforehand, or not too long beforehand.
Yeah, they can show up there, register so that we know who they are, who's bidding on this, and then just enjoy the auction. We have a professional auctioneer who's coming out. I'll try and help them out on stage a little bit, but this is going to be just like other auctions people have gone to, with bidding, with paddles raised in the air. It'll be a lot of fun.
As we sit here, the other thing you just recently, a bill had passed this spring, which I think a lot of people were surprised to hear, that insurance...
That a bill had passed in Springfield? A lot of people were surprised to hear that.
But in this instance, there was an insurance company, or some insurance companies were not paying off, not telling family members that we had a policy for your dad or for Uncle Louie or whomever. And sometimes people will take out life insurance policies and their family members don't know. And so if the life insurance company doesn't inform the family, the money was just sitting there.
It was sitting there, the life insurance company was investing it, and they were keeping that interest.
And this could account, I don't even know if we know how much, but it could be millions of dollars.
We have an idea, because there are over 20 companies that for the last 4 years have allowed us to come in to their company, look at their books. We compare their list of policyholders against the Social Security Administration's death master file. And if you see someone who's ended up on a death master file, there's a very good chance that that person is now dead and their beneficiaries are owed some money. Now, these 20-some companies have let us in, look at their books, and we've identified over $500 million in unpaid life insurance benefits for people in the state of Illinois. Nationwide, that number is over $7 billion. $550 million has gone directly to the heirs or come to us, and we're reuniting heirs with money that belongs to them. Now, that's not all the life insurance companies out there. We think there are hundreds of millions of dollars more that belong to people in the state, and we're fighting to get it into their hands.
And that law, or it's the bill that passed, but as we sit here, as yet the governor hasn't signed it into law, would require what?
Well, so it would require what other companies are voluntarily doing. We send our auditors in to look and see if people are owed these benefits. Right now, some of those companies say, well, actually, some of them are suing me because they don't want to open their books. They know that some of their policyholders are dead, but they maintain, how can we know? If a beneficiary doesn't contact us and give us a death certificate, how are we supposed to know if someone's dead? Well, there is a way. Under the law that we've pushed through and are waiting for the governor to sign, they will have to check their list of policyholders against the death master file twice a year. And if they find someone who's on a death master file, they have to make a good faith effort to notify their beneficiaries that they are the recipient of the policy. Because I think that no one writes a check to a life insurance company because they love life insurance companies. No one writes a check because they want to make an executive richer. They write those annual checks because they want to protect someone that they love. That when they're no longer here, they want to provide for them. And we want to make sure that they're provided for in a timely manner, not 30, 40, or 50 years later.
And again, on this issue, have you or your office contacted the governor's office and explained your position, and have you had any feedback? The governor has any opposition to it?
We've reached out to the governor's office. We have heard that they are reviewing the bill. I can't tell you a single person I've talked to other than an insurance executive who thinks this bill shouldn't be law. They all think that this is the right thing to do. I know it's the right thing. That's why we've been fighting so hard for this. But I know that the insurance industry is very powerful, and I know they would like to see it stopped, and so we continue to push.
Just out of curiosity, what does an insurance executive tell you is the reason that they would be opposed to this?
Well, they say their contracts say that they don't have to pay until someone comes to them. But as you said, there are sometimes people who aren't aware they're the beneficiaries, especially in the case of small children. Sometimes parents pass away in an untimely manner, but they wanted to take care of their kids, but their kids don't know about these life insurance policies. They don't know how to go about getting a death certificate and informing a life insurance company. In those cases, those children should be taken care of in a timely manner. We've identified cases. I have called individuals who were orphaned and didn't know their parents had life insurance policies. We eventually now have reunited them with money. But those life insurance companies held on to that interest. And that is wrong. And we know that there are other people out there that this affects, and that's why we're fighting so hard for this bill.
And one last thing on this, as a precaution, everyone, if you have a life insurance policy, ought to inform someone in the family that you have it. Yeah. And make some arrangements that would be, should you come about suddenly and through an accident or something, that other people would know of this.
So hopefully they do that. Hopefully this bill becomes law and they don't have to worry so much about that. But sometimes you will list multiple beneficiaries. And sometimes, people have held on to life insurance policy for 10 years. Their beneficiary has died. And maybe they didn't notify a second beneficiary.
Before we close out, let's just talk in this interesting election year. Were you in attendance at the Democratic convention?
I was. I was in Philadelphia for the 4 days of the convention.
And whatever you think of Hillary Clinton, it was at least historic, the first woman. What are your thoughts? What kind of a time did you have? And what were your impressions of the convention?
I was very excited. And I thought Michelle Obama summed it up very well on the first night. I think she gave a great speech. She talked about what this means to her daughters. I'm a father of a 7-year-old daughter, and I've had conversations with her about presidents. And I've got this plate that someone gave me. It's a historic plate from LBJ's time. It has pictures of every president around the edge of the plate. And my daughter pointed out there are no girls on there. That means something when she's looking and thinking of what she can or can't do in her life. She looks and says, "Oh, that's not an option for me." Now, I don't really want my daughter to go into politics. I doubt she wants to become president, but I want her to do whatever she wants to do and realize that there are no limits, there are no limitations to her potential. And so it was historic, and I think it's going to send a message to half of the people in this country that now anyone, really anyone, can be president of the United States.
And what about the future for Mike Frerichs? Have you decided if you're going to run for re-election or anything else?
I just started this job about 1.5 years ago, and I'm loving it. We're doing things to lower the fees that parents are paying for their college savings accounts. We're going to make it easier for people to save for their retirement. We're going to make it easier for parents with children with disabilities to leave their kids a better life. And we're doing things like fighting powerful insurance companies to make sure that some of those vulnerable people here in the state, those who are grieving loved ones, get paid in a timely manner. This is a great job, and I can see it doing it for a while.
One thing maybe I should have asked earlier on, there's been this discussion over the years of combining the Treasurer's and Comptroller's office. Is that going to happen? Should it happen, in your estimation?
It won't happen this cycle. I said this is something I think we could do, but instead of pushing for combining these offices, the governor said he supported it before, it was then pushing for other constitutional amendments. It's a question of priorities, and it just wasn't made a priority this year. I think we could do it. I think we could save some money, but it's going to take a constitutional amendment, and it requires the General Assembly to put that on the ballot.
All right, well, Mike Frerichs, we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Terry, thank you very much. Good to talk with you again.
Thank you.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.